Hello and good morning, friends. Welcome to the CEC-UGC live lecture. Dear friends, we would like to inform you that in today's lecture, we would be discussing on one of the very important theories. We would be discussing on Freud's Psychoanalytical Theory of Personality. And for this very discussion, we have once again with us in our studios Dr. Parveen Sharma. Dr. Parveen Sharma is Associate Professor in Hindu College of Education. Dr. Sharma has authored numerous books and a number of articles are her to credit, and these articles have been published in various papers both at national and international level. Number of students are pursuing their PhD under her able guidance, and her immense academic experience, we believe, would definitely help us out in understanding this theory in detail. So let's welcome our guest, Dr. Parveen Sharma, and let's understand Freud's Psychoanalytical Theory of Personality. Hello ma'am, welcome to today's lecture.
Thank you, Geetika ji. Good morning viewers and listeners. Today in this session we will be talking about Psychoanalytical Theory of Personality given by Sigmund Freud. As we know by the time that personality is the totality of our internal as well as external qualities, it is in totality. We'll see what is the contribution of Sigmund Freud in this field. Actually, Sigmund Freud from 1856 to 1939 was his period, contributed a lot in the field of personality. Sigmund Freud, or we can say this school of psychology, gave the views which were altogether different from the earlier school of psychology like constructivism or functionalism or behaviorism or gestaltism, because earlier to it the views were different. He gave a different blend of theory and practice. On one hand, Sigmund Freud gave the theory to understand and explain the human behavior, and on the other side he gave the method which is known as psychoanalysis to understand human behavior and as well as treating the mentally ill person. When he was in a school, being a Jew, he was teased by his classmates who were Christian. Actually, he developed the ideas which were like a revolt against the God and celibacy, and he was further criticized by the other psychologists of the time. Actually, he was different how he refused to sign a peace appeal given by Einstein in his lifetime because he was having a different ideas. He was of the opinion that aggression and love in the life of any individual are equally important instincts. If one is not able to externalize the aggression, which is important instinct of life, then it will internalize, and what will happen? The person will become neurotic. So that was the ideas which were different from the other psychologists. Freud was a very creative and sensitive mind, and being a firm ideas and honest intellectual, he refused to sign that peace appeal, and he was revolted like any great. So we'll see what is the ideas of Sigmund Freud, what are the ideas, what were the views which were different from the other psychologists. He talked about different aspects, and they are origin of psychoanalysis and free association, then talk about structure of mind, libido and infantile sexuality, Oedipus complex and sense of guilt, dreams and myths, daily psychopathology and mechanism, religion and civilization, psychoanalysis as a therapy. These are the aspects upon which we will be discussing, which were given by Sigmund Freud, the great psychologist. First, we will talk about origin of psychoanalysis and free association. In day-to-day life, we keep on listening catharsis. We will be talking about what was the idea given by Freud as a catharsis. Now, every conscious action has a cause in the unconscious. We know that sometimes we say this idea, this view was in the unconscious mind and this was in the conscious mind. So, we'll talking about conscious is simply a puppet in the hands of the unconscious. Whatever ideas are lying in the unconscious mind, they drive the conscious mind in that particular direction. And moreover, Freud was of the opinion that whatever you become an adult, you were determined to be so in early childhood, because it is established fact by all the psychologists that our personality is formed and developed in childhood. So, childhood experiences are very important in the contribution or in the making of the life of an individual. What is the concept of catharsis? We keep on listening the catharsis. Catharsis is, there are so many pent up or repressed desires in the life of any individual. When these pent up feelings or repressed desires are not getting expression and they are not externalized, what will happen? The person will become neurotic. When the person is given the chances, given the opportunity to express in a verbal form or in a written form, then the person will be normal. So, it is the catharsis when we give the opportunity to any individual to express, to give the outlet. This is very important. Then, after this catharsis, see what is the free association. In this therapy, Freud used to say that you just make the person, or you can call the person as a patient, make him or her seated in a comfortable sofa and comfortable couch and ask the person, what is your problem, what happened, how the quarrel started. So, this is the free association when you give the chances or the opportunity to any individual to say what is the cause, what is the problem. When the person is very much comfortable to express what is the cause, what is the problem, then this way Freud wanted to say that this is the therapy to cure the mental health of the individual, because in this era, if we talk, we know that the science has advanced. So, physical ailment are no more, but the person everywhere is in a stress. So, mental health needs to be taken care of. So, that's why Freud wanted to say that when you give catharsis, when you give free association to any individual, so this is the one aspect given by Freud. Whereas there is no doubt about the therapeutic value of relaxation and catharsis. Ultimate aim of attitudinal change in the patient, where he perceives the world, persons and events around him in a different perspective, is par excellence, meaning by we have to bring attitudinal change in any individual to cure, to make his health proper, to bring that person in a balanced manner. So, when you give this therapy, which is known as free association or catharsis, there are the chances that you can cure the mental health of the individual, which was relevant in that time also. And if we say in the present era, we can say that Freud was so much visionary that he knew it, and that this is a therapy which is really essential and which is very important in the present era also. The free association of a person makes the person to reveal his natural impulses and the way he has been accustomed to deal with these natural tendencies and impulses, meaning by when you make use of this free association as a therapy, you make the individual to feel comfortable and tell what is happening. Sometimes we see when the electric shock or that kind of therapy is given to the patient to say out to express what was lying there, what was hidden in the mind. So right now I have spoken to you that there is a cause behind every event, every saying. So our conscious is just a puppet in the hand of the unconscious, because what is lying there in the unconscious mind that comes out in a at a conscious level. Because when I was speaking to you about the life history of the Freud, he used to think that aggression and love both are essential impulses, both are essential instincts of an individual. So there must be given the proper opportunity to express aggression as well as the feeling of the love, because all the feelings are important. So that's why he used to think that aggression and love both are equally important. Then Freud sees sex everywhere in all sleeps, accidents, dreams and urges. Sex, according to him, is the chief motivating force of life and synonymous with pleasure. Since the sex urges of men often clash with demands of society, the result is conflict. It is free association which brings into prominence the existence of conflict. When there is a conflict in the mind of the individual, one has to decide what is the right and what is the wrong. So one has to adhere to the norms of the society. When such kind of a conflict is in the mind of the individual, when one decides what I have to do, that is known as his or her personality. There can be conflict between the dynamic urges of the individual that we call about the ego, and the social demand reality principle on the other hand. It assumes a very serious proportion when it occurs between ego and superego. I will be talking to you later on about id, ego and superego, the conscious, the internalized and the conditioned reality principle. Then on the second level, after the free association and catharsis, Freud talks about the structure of mind, that is id, ego, superego, or conscious, pre-conscious and unconscious. We can say that id is the illogical, immoral power. This aspect directs the individual to seek the pleasure, to fulfill the desire, whatever comes in his or her mind. And the third level, superego, is the moral aspect which always directs the individual to adhere to the norms of the society, to be moral. But this ego, this is not that ego which we talk in the real sense in the day-to-day life, that attitude or pride or ghaman. That is not that ego. This is a different term given by Simon Freud. This ego is like a balancing power which tries to make the balance between the id and the superego. And if ego give the company of the id, then becomes the person becomes immoral, and when this ego makes the company of the superego, then one becomes moral. So it depends on the power of the ego. Then it is totally submerged in the region of unconscious. Ego is also in the unconscious, but tending to touch the region of preconscious, also known as foreconscious or semi-conscious. Ego is spread over all the three regions of conscious, preconscious and unconscious. In the waking state, ego is functioning in the conscious. During sleep, it goes to function in the unconscious, and for a brief period before one sleeps, ego is suspended in the foreconscious. The concept of unconscious. Most of the time we listen, it was in my unconscious mind, it was just a slip of tongue. I will be talking about that aspect also. Unconscious is more powerful. The example is given like an iceberg. If you take the example of an iceberg, one part is above the level and 10 part is below the level. So its direction can be known, how much intensity is it is having under the level. And in the same manner, we can say that conscious is just a puppet in the hands of the unconscious. Man is not free and cannot make choices. How cannot make choices? Because our unconscious mind, our the desires or the pent up feelings which are lying in our unconscious mind gives us direction, and the unconscious level is like a storehouse of all the repressed desire. We have so many desires, all are not fulfilled. What happens? Outwardly we show, we just pretend that we are happy, it's okay, but unconsciously, unknowingly, these pent up desires, they just slip into the unconscious mind of the individual, and that unconscious level keeps on reminding the individual about the pent up feelings or repressed desires. Unconscious level is the battleground of life and death instincts, to be or not to be. This fight keeps on going on at the unconscious level, like slip of pen or slip of tongue. Further, I'll speak to you that Freud says it is not never slip of tongue or never slip of pen, because it came out from your pen, it came out from your tongue because it was lying in there in your unconscious mind, and when you were angry, when you were in an outburst, you just said those very things. It is seated in the unconscious, directed towards pleasure seeking, and ego between the two, seated in the conscious and unconscious region of psyche, and superego is seated in unconscious. The origin of superego is Oedipus complex. I will be talking to you about the concept of Oedipus complex. When ego fails to maintain the balance, the result is the disintegration of personality. So we need to strengthen the ego of the individual, otherwise the person will become neurotic. See in this pic, ego is in between. If it gives the company of the superego, man is able to adhere to the norms of the society. If not, if it is giving the company, making the id strong, then one becomes illogical, immoral. Freudian accepts hedonism. Hedonism in the Freud psychology or analytical theory of psychology, or in this branch of psychology, is very important. What do we mean by hedonism? It is seeking pleasure. But my dear friends, the world is not organized on this basis, and on this aspect Freud was criticized by his contemporary psychologists. If one keeps on doing this, can become a sinner. It is the inner conflict which gives rise to the various manifestations of repression, which when becomes severe causes neurosis. Meaning by when there is a conflict all the time in the mind, and one is not able to express the desires or express the feelings and is not able to seek that kind of pleasure, what will happen? The person will remain frustrated and will become neurotic. Thus, to repeat, a neurosis is interpreted as a resulted from the interplay of three forces, id, ego and superego, all the time from morning to evening, from life to death, till death. This kind of conflict, this kind of war is going on in everyone's life. What do we mean by life and death instincts? Life, according to him, is nothing but a circuitous route to death. Eros and Thanatos, life and death, are the two instincts around which the functioning of the entire psyche revolves. These instincts get day-to-day expression in the form of love and aggression. I spoke to you earlier that love and aggression and all the feelings are equally essential and important in one's life, because pleasure and pain both are essential for the natural growth of human being. कहा भी है कि सुख भी जीवन में सुख तब कहलाता जब जीवन में दुख आता है. So meaning by pleasure and pain both are equal and essential element of life. Then the third aspect given after the free association and catharsis, and the second is structure of mind, and third is libido and infantile sexuality. Upon this aspect, Freud was criticized time and again, all the instincts that have to do with love can be of two categories, self-preservation and race preservation. The purpose of libido is direct pleasure seeking in sex, and world is not based on this pleasure seeking only. We have to do a lot for the society and for the betterment and for the welfare of the society also. I will be talking to you about this aspect, how can we change the direction of this energy, what kind of curriculum we can have in the schools and what kind of activities we can organize in the home, so that we can give just redirection to this kind of energy of any individual. 6 types of libidinal flow: outward to love object, that is the gratification; inward to self, that is narcissism; arrest at some particular developmental stage, that is cathexis; backward, that is regression; dammed up, this is repression; deflected into channels of social value. These are 6 kind of libidinal flow, but the first, that is the outward to love object, and the deflected into channels of social value, they are normal and others are not. Libido is always present in all organisms, but libido varies in intensity in different individuals. Libido can be stimulated through various zones which are termed erotogenic. These zones are associated with nutrition, oral zone; excretion, anal zone; and procreation, genital zone. We are not going to in detail of these zones. Then the fourth is very important, Oedipus complex and sense of guilt. We know that Oedipus complex, a very complicated term meaning by love of the son for his mother and hatred for the father, and the term Electra complex for the love of the daughter for her father and hatred for her mother. Sense of guilt: the more the restrictions placed on the child and the higher the standard of moral achievement expected out of him, the keener is likely to be his sense of guilt. Whereby from this sense of guilt, we can say in a family where the parents are all the time emphasizing on the moral and social conduct or the high ambitions, then the restrictions are imposed on the children more and more. They are likely to adhere to the norms of the society. Sometimes they are repressed, or sometimes they feel more stressed. So it can be vice versa also. Then the dreams and myths. This is a very challenging term to be discussed, because there are lesser psychologists who could touch this aspect, that is the dream therapy, कि सपने कैसे और कहाँ आते हैं, कब आते हैं. But the Freud was the greatest of the psychologists who could touch this aspect. Actually, he wanted to say that the dreams reveal inner and true nature of an individual, and in that they lay bare his character and his prevailing motives and desires. He did not treat it as an accidental mental experience, and nor as something that at certain peculiar times tells a person what is going to happen. Freud also admits that the incidents of the previous day are also sometimes reproduced in the dream. Sometime what happens, what we have done in the daytime, they are reproduced in our dreams at night. Sometimes this is a therapy also. One person who is higher in your hierarchy rebukes in daytime, and you have no power to just rebuke or to respond in the same manner. What happens at night in your dream? It may be possible that you rebuke, rather you beat that person in the dreams, and when you get up in the morning, you are very relaxed, because what you could never do in the daytime, you saw in your dream that you beat that person and you are relaxed. It is a kind of sometime when the person is mentally ill, this kind of therapy is suggested by the psychoanalyst, but not always. Then the what is myth, dream and myth. Myth derive their appeal from the same source as dreams do. They set the fancy free and bring the remote together. Myths have been termed as dreams of the race. Then the next is the daily psychopathology and defense mechanism. What is the psychopathology? As earlier previously a few minutes back I was talking to you that sometime we comment a wrong word, by a wrong sentence, we write wrong things, and later on we try to make a defense to defend ourselves, to protect ourselves, our errors. We say it was just a slip of tongue. No, my dear friends, not according to me, according to Simon Freud, there is nothing like this, no slip of pen, no slip of tongue, but it was lying there in your unconscious mind, and when you were aggravated, it came out in your conscious mind, because I was talking to you that conscious is just a puppet in the hand of the unconscious, because your repressed desires, your repressed feelings, they went into the unconscious mind, and when the things were over, you became powerless, and then those ideas, they come out of your tongue. So psychoanalysts should understand this thing. Similarly, what is the defense mechanism? When in our day-to-day life, any individual or we commit mistakes, we try to put it on the shoulder of the other person. That is known as defense mechanism. We try to protect ourselves by our wrong deeds. How? Some of the defense mechanism I will be talking to you in brief. First is the identification. When one's ego is weak to stand by alone, he picks up some hero from the environment and identifies with him to get support, as a lame would need crutches. Sometimes we commit a mistake, and to give the excuse, we say he also did it. We find out a hero from the society. Hero means any person, and we try to identify ourselves. What happens, what matters, what bothers you if I did, he or she also, the great person from the society also did it. So this is a defense mechanism when we try to save ourselves from the wrong deeds which we committed, which should not have been done by us. Then the projection. What is the projection? We sometimes project our failures and shortcomings on others. Sometimes children, when they write poor handwriting, then sometimes they give the excuse from the some of the historians, some of the great leaders. What happened, what bothers ma'am, when if I am writing in a bad manner, that particular person, I don't want to name out, has a bad handwriting. So this is our projection, that we try to protect our failures and shortcomings. Then rationalization. We try to give the excuse, reason why we did it. Of course, it was not fair. This is to offer socially and scientifically acceptable reasons for some behavior. We know internally that this behavior was not good, this was not acceptable to the society, but to protect ourselves, what we do, we give the reasons. I never wanted to do, but the other person provoked me, that's why I did it. So if I misbehaved, if I said it, it's not my fault, it is the fault of the other person who provoked me. So this is wrong, this is rationalization. We are trying to find the defense mechanism. Then the regression. Here, as libido finds it difficult to flow forward, it begins to travel back and falls back on the objects of earlier choice. To have an alumni association on where we talk of the good old days, meaning by that these days we are not happy and we are finding the happiness in previous one. Then the fixation or cathexis. Here libido is arrested at some particular point and refuses to grow further. Then the escape. When the situation grows too bitter, the person moves away from the situation and escapes into a world of fantasy. So these were the 6 aspects. I hope listeners and viewers, they are well aware and they will be benefited to know how this psychoanalysis or this school of psychology was different from the school of gestaltism or behaviorism, and how the repressed desires, they go deep into the unconscious level, and how id, ego, superego, they are important aspect. So This is the duty of the parents, of the adults, of the teachers and the individual himself or herself to strengthen the ego so that ego makes the super ego more powerful to live a balanced and happy life, which is very important. And Freud gives this therapy to treat the mentally ill person so that we come out as a mentally healthy and happy person. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, viewers and listeners. In this session, we will be further talking about the Sigmund Freud's contribution to the field of education, how the teachers, parents and other stakeholders can be benefited, can come to know what should be the curriculum in the schools and what kind of environment and treatment should be given to the children so that they come out as a mentally balanced and healthy person, because if one child is healthy and happy, can spread happiness and can work for the betterment of the individual and betterment of the society and the nation as a whole. So, we will be proceeding further. The next aspect given by Freud was religion and civilization. In psychoanalysis, religion had been condemned to be a dope, a neurosis, opium, regression, infantile fixation and pram attitude. Further, I must tell you that Freud was criticized on the aspect of infantile fixation and libido. Civilization, according to Freud, is a fragrant rose flower which owes its beauty and splendor to the manure of sex applied to the roots of this tree of society. In other words, civilization and culture are nothing but a transmission of raw sex energy, and he was criticized on this. Now, the lastly, psychoanalysis as a therapy. How this school of psychology gave the blend of theory and practice to the society, which was not given by the earlier psychologists. On one side, on one hand, Freud gave a theory to understand and explain the human behavior, and on the other hand gave a method which is known as psychoanalysis to explain the human behavior, study human behavior, as well as for like a medicine, like a treatment for the mentally ill persons who become neurotic due to repressing the desires. See how this process is being done. Sometime it is being commented by other psychologists on Freud's school of psychology that the two aspects are important, that comfortable couch and the catharsis, because most of the time during this process, during this therapy, Freud wanted to say, first of all, when you want to find out the cause or the root cause of the illness, you first make the individual feel comfortable by making or seating him on the comfortable couch, comfortable sofa, and try to maintain or establish a rapport between the analyst and the analyst, so that there is a close rapport between the person who is being examined and who is analyzing the problem, because unless the person or is not able to make a good rapport and not feeling comfortable, will not tell the problem, because you have to assure the person that I am not going to share your problem with anyone, be comfortable. After knowing the problem or the cause, I will suggest you the therapy, how you can become mentally happy. So this establishing rapport is the first part of the dealing. Then the analysis, then it is being tried to analyze the problem. Patient is asked to tell each and every aspect, and what happens while the patient or the person is made comfortable, the person who is the analyst just stands back on the back side of the patient and make him comfortable to say everything, whatever comes in his or her mind, what is lying in his or her unconscious mind. Then the synthesis, at this aspect restructurization of psyche is done. So what was there at the root cause, and then the abreaction of the whole drama. Abreaction, the whole drama means you ask the person what happened. You start from the very beginning. If you hide some aspect, then you have to tell the patient or the person that if you hide some aspect, I will not be able to make the proper therapy and proper cure. So you have to be open, what was the root cause. Then discussion about the genesis of the trouble. So there should be healthy discussion. You are not supposed to give your opinion before listening from the person. Make him comfortable. That was the first part, that is the free association. Make them person feel free, whatever comes, nothing right, nothing wrong. The person should not feel that if I tell this thing or this part of the war, then it will be wrong from my side to tell. Then otherwise, in this case, the doctor or who is trying to analyze the problem, who is trying to treat you, will not be able to give the proper counseling. Then acceptance of the entire body or psychoanalytical theory, how the process can be given the right treatment. Then acceptance of reality principle. What is the reality principle? Actual reality principle is pleasure and pain, they are inseparable. They go side by side. You cannot separate, because Sigmund Freud was the greatest psychologist who tried to make balance between the body and the mind, that they cannot be separated. You can become or work as an integrated unit when your body and mind is functioning as a whole unit. Then breaking of the rapport. Then lastly, the treatment can be given. What was the cause behind the problem and how one can be treated. Later on, after this, I am just revising what were the aspects. The first was free association and catharsis, because catharsis is important. If all your problems, all your worries are lying buried in your mind, you will be frustrated because you are not getting the chance to share. So catharsis, according to Sigmund Freud's theory, was very important. Free association is very important. Then talked about structure of mind, id, ego and superego. Then libidal and infantile sexuality, because he was of the viewpoint that one's life starts getting shaped from the earlier childhood. These are the earlier childhood experiences which contribute to the development of the personality. So these earlier childhood, they matters. So here when we talk about educational implications, we'll talk that it is important, it is essential to be known by the parents and the teachers that early childhood experiences are very important. So early childhood care is very important. then after that he talks about the dreams and myth, and that the psychopathology and the dreams, they are very important, and how he talked about that the conscious is just a puppet in the hands of unconscious, and unconscious is like a storehouse of all our repressed desires. So meaning by all the repressed desires, they just gathered at unconscious level, and time and again this unconscious part is giving direction to our conscious mind. But on this infantile sexuality or libido and the pleasure and pain feelings, all these aspects, they were being criticized by the other psychologists. How we'll see. First, the psychologists were of the viewpoint that it is not fair that all the time you talk about pleasure seeking, because world is not organized on the basis of pleasure seeking only. We have to do a lot for the society, for the nation. So if one is bent up all the time in pleasure seeking, it cannot be, because world is also not organized like this. So if according to Freud, the other psychologists used to say that man becomes or man behaves like an animal only, pleasure seeking only. Of course, 5 instincts we are having like animals, but the other 6 sense, that is the intellect, we have been provided by the God. हमें नवाजा है, बुद्धि से नवाजा है ईश्वर ने. So we can take use of that intellect. So Freud was being criticized by the other psychologists. Man is not like this. It often overgeneralizes on the basis of a single study, and moreover it overemphasizes on the sex in human life, and moreover when the treatment is given, all the information is given by the person or the patient himself or herself. He may or she may exaggerate because we are not getting the information from the other sources. So it was being suggested by some of the psychologists that the information should be taken by other sources also, because on the basis of information given by the patient only we treat, that is not fair. It exaggerates the role of reality childhood, early childhood experiences, because child is not aware. If all the time we say that early childhood experiences are only important or only contributing to the development of the personality in later life, it is not fair. So he was being criticized. But after the criticism, we'll say that the contribution which Simon Freud given in the field of psychology carries more weight than the criticism, because when he was criticized by the other psychologists from the other school of psychologists, that is behaviorism and gestaltism, they were seeing the things from the different perspective, but they were not against it, because Freud developed a sort of reaction against God and celibacy. That's why he was revered by his contemporary Christians who were belonging to the religion and the civilization. But lastly, let us see what was the contribution of the Freud in the field of personality. If we do not talk about Freud, we are not talking in reality about the personality, because Freud could touch those aspects which were not touched by any of the psychologists. So we will discuss what was the real contribution of the Freud. First of all, Freud gave a really good method to understand the human behavior and explain the human behavior, what one is thinking. In a way, on the basis of behavior, Freud tried to predict if the behavior, if one is behaving in this manner, later on he may or she may likely to behave or respond in such a manner, and it provided a good therapy to treat the neurotic behavior, because just now I spoke to you when the aggression is not externalized or not given, the one is not given opportunity to give outlet or give catharsis to that anger, what will happen? Those angry feeling will be internalized, one will take inside, and what will happen? The person will behave like a neurotic person. And it has highlighted the importance of good education. See, when he talked about libido and infantile sexuality, that aspect, without being criticizing, we can take its positive aspect. Psychologist or the educationist can take note of this point, that it is very important to understand by the educationist that such kind of curriculum should be framed in the schools, that different co-curricular activities or sports sort of activities or creative activities or dance drama competition can be organized in the schools, so that that energy of the children, that energy of the adults can or the adolescents can be rechannelized, can be redirected, so that they come out as a healthy person. And Freud's concept of the unconscious has helped in understanding the causes of maladaptive behavior. We see some of the students, some of the children in home and some of the students at school, they misbehave and they are not having ability to make adjustment in the society. So what happens? The result is the maladjusted behavior. So it is very important aspect these days. It has become debatable why the children they become maladjusted, and if they turn out so, what is the treatment, what kind of therapy can be given to these kind of children. So in this way we can take help from the Freud's contribution, Freud's theory, Freud psychoanalytical therapy, that how can we treat the such kind of children who become maladaptive in the society, in making adjustment when they have problem. We as a teachers can come to understand that different kind of activities or competition should be organized in the school, so that their energy get channelized. And his emphasis on the role of sex can be taken note of positive side. It means we as an educationist, we as a teacher can come to know that there should be provision of sex education in the schools, that this kind of energy should be given the proper direction. Freud's system of psychoanalysis has emphasized on the provision of extracurricular activities for the release of repressed or blocked desires in our pent up side. What happens when our desires are not fulfilled? Because we know by the time that there are individual differences. One child is good at studies and other child is good at other activities. So when the child is all the time getting rebuked by the parents and the teachers, and you keep on making the comparative study of the child, that you are to secure as good marks as the other child is securing, then this is not fair, because the child becomes depressed and child become frustrated. You have to give the opportunity to the child to take part in the other activities, so that his pent up desires, his pent up feelings get outlet. So at this point we can say that when Freud in the long back talked about catharsis and free association, how visionary he was, because in these days circumstances, in school circumstances, we come to see that all children are not good at academic front, so they should be given the chances of taking part in sports, in other cultural activities, or in dance, drama, painting, other competition, so that their desires, their depressed feelings get outlet, and they feel that we are also better in the other field if not in the one, because we cannot compare one child to the other child. So this way, this extracurricular activities, when we can organize in the school, in the institution, they get outlet, they get expression as Freud used to say that free association, free catharsis should be given to the child, because this catharsis is very important, and extracurricular activities for the release of repressed or blocked libidinal energy is very important, because if our energy do not get outlet, what will happen? We will become neurotic. What happens? Because I already talked to you that our unconscious level is a storehouse of the repressed desires. What happens? That our conscious mind is getting the direction and getting the energy from our unconscious mind. That is why Freud, when talk about psychopathology, he talked about that there is no slip of tongue, there is no slip of pen. When you say something bitter in your anger, it means you in a heart of heart wanted to say this very thing to that person, but you were not gathering the confidence to say so. But when the things overpowered you, your unconscious directed your conscious mind to say so. It means when one become neurotic, one become angry in this manner, and if it becomes very important, or if it becomes out of control, then it is essential to treat that person by the feeling of free association and catharsis, and which I was talking to you in the last aspect, that the psychoanalysis is a very important, and sometimes psychologists try to interpret the through the dream therapy. The dream, they are not the explaining power, rather interpreting. We are trying on the basis of psychoanalytic theory given by Simon Freud to interpret the behavior of the individual through dream therapy. We are not explaining. See, the interpretation or the explanation, both are different. So they are on the basis of psychoanalytical theory trying to interpret your behavior, trying to predict your behavior, because id, ego, superego, at conscious level and at unconscious level, side by side they are functioning. And earlier to Freud, no one could give such kind of therapy, because our mind and body, if they work together, then our healthy growth is possible. Otherwise, what will happen? Healthy growth of any individual is not possible, because in that case it will be very strong. And what will happen? If it becomes strong, one will be bent up on the habit of pleasure seeking, which was mentioned earlier in this very slide, that the world is not organized on this basis that one is all the time bent on pleasure seeking, because we have to work for the betterment of the society also. So this way we see the therapy of treating the mentally ill person was very important work of the Simon Freud. If he was criticized by the other psychologists or the other school of psychology like Gestaltians or the behaviorism, they were not agreeing to it. That's why in his lifetime, when he refused to sign this peace appeal, he was a person of very honest intellectual and a very strong conviction, because he never wanted to kneel down, because what he felt, he said it. He was having different ideas, but he wanted to say that if this therapy is not given its shape, then what will happen? The individual may sometime not able to know what is the importance of pleasure and what is the the place of pain, because they are inseparable. We cannot separate them, because in our lifespan what happens? Pleasure and pain, they go together. But what is the tendency of the individual? Always wants to have pleasure and try to escape from the pain. That is why when talking about pathology, the Freud said that one wants to avoid the pain and one wants to escape from the situation. That is why I talk to you about identification, about projection, about injection, or about the therapy, or sometime rationalization. I was talking to you that sometime what happens when one commits mistakes, try to rationalize, oh, what happens, what bother if I am doing, like suppose you are throwing the litter on the road, you say what bothers if I am doing, other people are also doing. So this is the rationalization, and so this is a natural tendency. But if we want to curb this tendency of the children, this tendency of the students, like projection, identification, or the rationalization, or the escape, these are defense mechanism. My dear friends, when one tries to make use of excessive the defense mechanism, what happens? One tries to escape in the dream of fantasy. It is not fair, it is not genuine when one all the time tries to live in the world of fantasy, because we have to follow the reality principle also, because we have to work for the society, we have to work for the nation also. So we cannot live all the time in the world of fantasy or in the world of imagination. Though it was said, or it was given, or it was established by Sigmund Freud that it is important to treat the mentally ill person by making him like imagining or sometimes feeling the good things. This is also a defense mechanism. For example, this kind of therapy is also suggested by the psychologist when suppose one is in the or passing through some suffering or pain. Sometime one therapy is suggested that that patient, that person is reminded a feeling of pleasure. For example, one individual is getting failure in one field, he is reminded, oh, what happens if you are not able to do this thing, when earlier when you tried your hand at music, you did very well. So this way, this is also a defense mechanism. This way psychoanalysts try to treat the individual by giving this therapy. But when it is used in excessive, what happens? If it is used in excessive, then it is not fair, because one individual this way goes deep into the world of unreality or the fantasy, and it is not fair when one does like this. So this way, proper treatment of the individual should be given. So my dear friends, we hope by psychoanalyst theory given by Sigmund Freud, we can come to know that when at one hand the other psychologist criticized Sigmund Freud, but we can see the positive side of the theory also, because if he talked about libido or the other aspects, we can take the positive side of this aspect, that we can organize extracurricular activities in the school so that energy gets its redirection. And in the same manner, at home, we as a parents can give the congenial environment and should not impose the higher ideas on the children, because they have their individual differences. If we impose on them the higher ideals, sometimes they feel depressed and sometimes they run away from the home, because if you put high ideas and the children are not coming up to your expectation, they feel frustrated. Oh, what will happen? I won't be able to show my face to my parents. They have so much expectation. So this way the desires go in a repressed manner in the unconscious level. So this is also not fair, but it doesn't mean that parents should not have higher expectation from the children, but the parents have to realize what are the capabilities of the child. That's why all these aspects given by Freud, like free association and catharsis and libido and the structure of mind, and when he is talking about the id, ego and superego, this is very important in day-to-day life also. He was such a visionary that he talked about ego, that if ego is accompanied by superego, then the person will think of the betterment of the society, will try to adhere to the morals of the society, otherwise not. So parents and the teachers have to keep a check on the personality of the children. So I hope by organizing extracurricular activities in school and by giving congenial atmosphere at home, we can contribute ourselves for the better development and for the balanced human growth of our child. So my dear viewers and listeners, I hope the great psychologist Sigmund Freud and his contribution to the school of psychology cannot be forgotten. He was really a great psychologist. If he was criticized by the other psychologists, they were having different ideas, but we owe a great to the great psychologist Sigmund Freud. Thank you very much.
With this note, thank you, ma'am. Thank you so very much. And dear friends, we had a very, very good discussion on one of the theories, and we believe that these theories are not merely the theories, these are the crux of life. So you must adopt whatever is being taught here in this session today, and we promise you that we would be meeting again soon and would be discussing more on theories and more on the textual part. So till then, take care, goodbye, and yes, do write to us at info.cc@nic.in. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Geetika ji. Thank you, viewers and listeners.